I wanted to give you a quick high-level overview of what we're doing on a project that I'm working on, Heart of Mercy, right now, which is a project for which we're using all the Daz Studio marketplace assets, and we're going to use them inside Unreal Engine. And sometimes these assets have issues, and it is quite the job to make them look their best and so that they're suitable for prime time. This is a chapel that I've been working on all morning, and I wanted to show you what I did there in detail, step by step, so that we can, see what was necessary to get this fixed. So there were a few issues with it. The first of which was the textures. These are 1K textures. I think there was one diffuse map and one bump map that make up the bulk of these things. And I'll show you this in Unreal Engine once I've transferred it. Here's the same cloister or the same chapel 3 times. And this one here is the one with the original texture. So this is what they look like up close and in unlit mode. And you can see they're fairly blurry, and the clock face looks okay, but everything else could do with a bit of an up-res. So there's multiple ways of dealing with this. One is that you take the whole thing into Substance Painter and retexture it, but that takes quite a bit of work. So the other is to use the power of AI and up-res the textures, and then we come up with something like this. So these are the same textures, but an AI program had a look at it and upsized them. And isn't that remarkable? I mean, you can see an absolutely clean clock face. You can see texture on the stones. The roof tiles look okay. Bump map, I don't think I've dialed that up yet, but that's just a matter of tweaking that a little bit. But look at that. Isn't that amazing? Absolutely unbelievable. This is the original with their blurriness. And then Gigapixel AI just turned it into that, and that's just crazy. I mean, things like the cracks, they are now usable, and this is something where you see, hey, that doesn't look right. So an absolute marvel. This program is Gigapixel AI by Topaz, and this is what the program looks like. And this is the original texture here, and this is at 100%, and this is what it did when I think I've up-resed it by a factor of 6. So it's quite large. The 1K map gets turned into a 6K map, and it's unbelievable. I don't know where it gets this information from. This is blurry, pixelated mess, and it knows full well, hey, this looks like rock, and these are the cracks that I'm putting in there. So I'm absolutely thrilled with this. There are things that I've seen that this program can do that you see like blurry green mess on the left, and it turns it into crisp, clear green grass stalks on the right. It's absolutely impressive. So very cool. So the way I did this is I made a copy of the original textures, let the AI program then save them out as up-res bits and pieces and overwrite the originals, and with the same file name, so I don't have to remap anything. So that's number one. That's the textures. But number two is that there were 2 issues, and this is the asset that still has the issues. One was over here. Something is not right with the UV mapping. If you look at the texturing here and here, then aside from it being low res, this is not what roof tiles look like. So that was weird. And then on the other side, there was something that was occluding the door, and you can see that the door is only kind of half visible, and there is a thing like a large polygon that's occluding that. So that was a matter of taking this geometry, the whole edge loop, and moving it back inside Blender. And the UV issue, that was something that needed corrected UV. So this is the same cloister with high-res textures now in Blender. And this is where I had to do that, this and that. So this was a relatively easy geometric fix here. This here door looks good now. But on the other side here, on the other hand, the UV issue, that was something that was a little messy to get done. Let me show you where that is. So this is the UV editor, and this is the corrected part of the UVs, and this is what it looked like beforehand. So somewhere off the map, and it was kind of, there's clearly overlapping UVs, and that's the shared vertices, so that's not very good. There's some here, and some there. That's the whole section of the roof selected. So what I had to do is, with that selection, grab them out and then use Blender's UV repacking method to make them look better. So I did Smart UV Project, I believe. Nope, that's not over here. I think it's over here. Smart UV Project. That's what I did on a second UV map. And then this is what I came up with. So I repacked it and then moved it to a position that would look visually okay. And thankfully the textile density worked out well. So now it works okay. So that's obstacle number 2. Then obstacle number 3, that is also something that I did in Blender, and that is that our director was saying, hey, the original dome of the chapel. That looked very large. This is what the original looked like. And this is a kit-bashed asset. And he said this is a little bit out of proportion, the dome, in relation to the house. So I went ahead and modeled this so that we can make it smaller. And I did this with a slider because it's difficult to see in an isolated asset how large does the dome need to be. So maybe we want it to be something like this so that it looks okay, but it'll be really the best thing if we could have that kind of slider functionality inside Unreal Engine while we're looking at the rest of the scene with all the other buildings. And that is something that I wasn't actually familiar with, how Unreal Engine handles that. I know it can handle morph targets, which is what this is, essentially morph target, but I had no idea how Unreal Engine would handle that, and I figured it out. There is a way with a plugin called Mesh Morpher to make that happen, but it's so clunky. I think the full version is $900, so I thought, no, I'm not going to do that. So I figured out a way to put this slider into the asset in Daz Studio and then go and move it here. So the thing was, though, that that Unreal Engine, for this to work in Unreal Engine, it needs to be a skeletal mesh rather than a static mesh. So for Daz Studio, it doesn't make a difference. Here's the same slider functionality inside Daz Studio. So for Daz Studio, it doesn't make a difference if this is on a skeletal or a static mesh. This is the static mesh and this is the skeletal mesh. But for Unreal Engine, it does. So it can't have a morph target on a static mesh, which is what this was originally. So I had to turn this one into a skeletal mesh via the Edit Object Rigging Convert Prop to Figure option here, in case you ever need to do that. And if you need to retain a morph target, you need to do that first and then use the Daz to Unreal bridge to retain that functionality. And then the icon changes here, and then you can bring it into Unreal Engine, where then, whoops, here it is, the third option. That is then where the morphable chapel is that we can now use in our scene. And the way to find this morph target is you have to bring this in. So you have to see this is a skeletal mesh here. This one was a static mesh, so this is not what we need. So we needed this one here. And then with that, you double click into the actual mesh asset so that this window opens up, and then in here we have the morph target tab up here, and that's where we have the dome smaller morph. Quite the exciting project. But you know, the thing is, you learn all the time, and now we have this thing that can be adjusted inside Unreal Engine. So this is my next task, bringing all this into the master scene and then building out an orchard and building out a little pool. So that's going to maybe be my next project update. I just thought you get a kick out of it because there's just so much going on in working with this, and you know, it's just wonderful to explore this and share it with you. So thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care. Bye bye.